Alright, welcome to the show today. Today we are talking about AAU basketball. I didn't know what it was. I would talk about AAU basketball all the time. I would reference AAU teams, but I thought about it and I realized I don't really know what it is. But you're about to find out, and I already found out what it is. So let's get into it. AAU stands for Amateur Athletic Union, but more colloquially, or the nomenclature we use, is as a basketball team that kids play on during the off season from their high school basketball team. They do other sports too, but for now we are focusing on basketball. AAU runs in spring and summer, obviously, because in winter kids are playing on their high school teams. They also do an AAU winter for kids that probably have high school teams that suck, and the best possible competition they have is to play in AAU ball. Maybe if they go to like a small Christian school where no one is very good and they only play other small Christian schools. I'm only speaking from experience because I went to a small Christian school and there really wasn't any great competition. AAU does not have a set number of teams. There aren't sanctioned AAU teams. Anyone can start an AAU team with $30. Isn't that nuts? All you need is $30. And as a matter of fact, if you pay $300, you can now take charitable donations, tax-free charitable donations for your team to pay your coaches or do whatnot, which seems problematic to me. I don't know if it seems problematic to you, but youth basketball is good for kids, and I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but I'm definitely saying it's not a charity. Along with this $30 for the team, each athlete needs to pay $14 for his membership fee. Now, since you paid $30, you can attend AAU events. Your team can now go to AAU events and play in those events. Not all the events though. Some events are invitation only and some cost money to play. I could assume that most of the events that cost money to play, or events that are invitation only, are going to be the ones that prominent college scouts are going to be attending, which feels a little up. When you sign up for an event, you set your roster with your team members. Anyone that is a member, anyone that paid that $14 can be on your team. They don't need to be on your roster at the beginning of the AAU season, which is very weird. So theoretically, a coach or an AAU team could have a different roster every time. This is unlike any school that maybe you play for or a professional team where your roster must be set at the beginning of the season. You're not going to have a different roster every time. That would make no sense. But these events are individual. These are AAU tournaments, so the team can be different every time. And we're going to get into why that is a problem. So this is the first problem with AAU basketball, is the lack of consistency. These players are in their most formable years. These are very important. They're learning habits. They're learning how to play. They're learning how to play as a team. They need to be coached or mentored by people who are going to be observing them on a regular basis, not random coaches from wherever that they get selected to play in that tournament that weekend. They need to learn, where am I bad? What do I need to work on? What am I good at? What type of player do I want to be? What are different aspects of the game that I haven't actually worked on? Many times viral high school players, they have a part of their game that is very flashy. Maybe they're really good at dribbling, but most likely they're really good at dunking. So big AAU teams, very established AAU teams, will want to have that player on their team, and vice versa. That player will want to be on an established AAU team. So that player may fly out from South Carolina to go play in Florida because he wants to be a part of that team. That's not great, because now he's spending time traveling to go play in Florida where he could be working on his game. He's not even practicing with that team because technically he's not really on the team. He's just going to play in tournaments. He's not practicing with them. He's just coming in and doing some big dunks and looking good for that AAU team, but he's not improving his skills. Often in these tournaments, these kids are playing 4 to 6 games over the course of 2 days. That's wild. There isn't a lot of time to rest, and there isn't a lot of time to analyze their performance. So not only are these kids not really learning from their mistakes, but they're also risking burning out. That's a lot of basketball. They could lose their passion for the game. And a lot of times these coaches will play a style of basketball that isn't conducive to college ball. They'll play a downhill offense and they'll play a very zone heavy defense because that's what works in AAU basketball. They're not really learning how to do man-to-man defense and learning how to switch. They're not learning dynamic offensive plays. They're just learning what works at AAU. I got this information from a guy named Brandon Winters. He's a coach of AAU, and he says the best possible defense you can run at an AAU game is full court pressure, and then when they're on the offensive half, running a zone defense, because kids aren't strong enough to break a double team, and they're also not strong enough to huck the ball over the opposing team to the open man. Does this work in college? Absolutely not, because kids are stronger. Kids are way better at that. They can go right through a double team. They can pass over guys. They can shoot threes. If you leave them open, they will make you pay for it. But in AAU, AAU, that's a lot less common. So if you want to win an AAU game, you play that way. But this isn't necessarily success in the game. Success is learning how to play at the level you want to play at, which is college ball. So winning a game isn't necessarily success. But again, I don't blame the coaches because they want to win. The parents want the coach to coach a winning team. The kids want to win. So it kind of sucks for them. Winning at AAU is like cashing out a stock of a company that you really love way too early. You say, hey, I made a little bit of money, I'm going to cash out now, rather than holding on to the stock, watching it grow, and cashing out later. If that makes it easier, it probably just complicates it further. Ultimately, competing at AAU tournaments isn't as important as working on your skills. Obviously, you need to play in games to put your skills into practice, but the most important thing is practicing your skills and having those skills when you're ready to play ball. That's kind of confusing. Put them into a game setting. A lot of people think AAU went wrong when they started getting sponsored by Nike and Adidas and Under Armour. These shoe companies would sponsor teams. They would sponsor teams in hopes that these young, talented players would be brand loyal to the team that sponsored their AAU team. This put a lot of focus on the teams to grow their brand and to get more sponsorships from shoe companies rather than focus on growing good athletes and growing quality human beings, quality men and women, which is true with anything. Once you start making money, you start looking at it as a business. You make a little money and you think, why can't I make more money? And you start to lose focus of the original intention. I couldn't find any examples of this, but I have heard from multiple sources that parents of these players will end up getting money from some of the sponsors or some of the advisors, and that makes them ineligible from college ball and high school ball because they lose their amateur status. Again, I could not find an example, but I did see it from multiple sources, so take this with a grain of salt. A lot of prominent basketball figures have criticized AAU. Steve Kerr, currently the coach of the Golden State Warriors, coached his son's AAU team for 3 years. He said he hadn't seen anything like it. He would see players playing on 2 different teams during a tournament. He said there were players that would fly out for games to play on a particular team. And he said it was very rare to ever see a team practice. He criticized it, said the aspect of basketball where you learn to play as a unit to do something bigger than yourself or learn the fundamentals of playing as a team is completely lost in AAU basketball. Kobe Bryant said that players only learn the fancy stuff, the showboaty stuff. He said all they do is do things that will make the crowd ooh and ah, but in reality they don't know the fundamentals of the game. He said AAU is stupid. Ultimately, in America, we live in a society now of public adoration, right? So you'll take any success that you have and you'll try to leverage that into public adoration. But the best thing you can possibly do is just pursue something you're passionate about, and a byproduct of that will be public adoration. And at that point, you probably won't care if you get it or don't. So I think the players that really stick around are the ones that enjoy the game of basketball and enjoy the aspect of self-improvement. That's what I believe, that's what I think, but ultimately, it's not a terrible system, but I'm just kind of criticizing it and bringing up the bad points. And I'm doing this as a comparison to the Euro League and the Euro Youth Academies, and I think they do a way better job. Ultimately, I also think high school basketball is kind of dumb. Just including, your academics with athletics is unnecessary. I know a lot of people have a lot of pride in their school sports, but I think it's doesn't make sense to me. But I appreciate that. Anyway, be good to your moms.